Hi everyone, I hope you can see me. My name's Jackie Strachan. If everyone can just keep themselves muted and their camera off, please. Just helps with the bandwidth. We'll start going in a minute or two, just as a few more people coming in. So if we can just make sure that we're, if all the people who aren't participating keep themselves on mute and their video off, that would be really appreciated. All right, so I just wanted to start off by introducing myself. My name's Jackie Strachan. I'm a director at SMS Law. Today I have with me a panel of experts that are here to give you advice and also to answer your questions. So I have Craig Mason, who's my business partner in SMS Law, who's going to be talking about some of the legal implications of what's going on now. Ashely Rees from Ray White Northern Corridor, who's going to be talking about the real estate. For those of you who were on the first one on Thursday night, Jackie Strachan, employment extraordinaire expert from HR Tactics. She's going to be talking, just giving us an update on the changes that have come through on the employment law stuff, and Roger Hawley, accountant extraordinaire, who's back to talk to us about the changes that have come through in the space of the incentives and everything. So guys, and Jackie, I'm gonna ask you to just kill your videos for the minute, and I'll get you to start your videos up when we get through, just to save everyone's bandwidth. I know that, what's the name's, Telstra have been having a lot of problems with bandwidth, and so we want to make sure that we respect that. So just to want to thank everyone for making the time to be here. I know that everyone's busy. Everyone's got lots of stuff going on in their lives. Lots of stuff going on in our businesses. So thank you for making the time to be here, and thank you again to the experts. I want to just encourage everyone who's on this call to take a moment to stop. Things are changing at a breakneck speed at the moment, but the next 60 to 90 minutes are about helping you to learn, to ask questions, and to find out the facts as they stand now, to answer all your questions. I know that it's hard, but if you can, put your phone away, close down your internet browser, close down your email program, and just focus on what we're talking about today, because this stuff is going to help to get you through what is coming next and through this corona crisis as much as we can. Be present. We're all in this together, and we will all get through this together. I just want to make that clear. We'll all get through this together. So we are fielding, the team that's on this call today, quite rightly, lots and lots of phone calls and emails that people are asking every day. The idea of this is to answer your questions in a public forum, because the questions are very similar, and we want to make sure that you're getting the right advice as we're going. At the end, I'll share with everyone the email addresses, and just, if you've got any other questions, you can email us with anything there. One of the reasons, sorry, just reading through my notes. Remember that you are a leader of your community, of your business, your family, and if you are calm, they will be calm. To quote my business coach and mentor, David Dugan, you get what you project. So just remember that. So take a deep breath, relax, and we'll get into this. Before I start, again, the structure for those who've joined late is going to be Craig's going to talk first, then Ash is going to talk, Jackie's going to talk, and then Roger's going to talk, and then there'll be plenty of time to ask questions. I will ask, Roger has to leave by 1:45 Brisbane time, so I will ask that any questions that you've got about what Roger's talking about, put them in as he's talking, so that way we can get through his questions before he needs to leave. But the rest of us are here as much as you guys need, for as many questions as you need to answer everything to move everyone forward. So Craig, if you don't mind unmuting yourself and share your slide, turn your video back on and share your slides, I will mute myself and let you go.
Alrighty, everyone should be able to hear me and see the slides. So as Jeremy said, I'm Craig Mason. I'm a lawyer at SMS Law, and just talking about some of the changes and some of the effects of that have come through recently. So as of today, so the 25th of March, the changes to the Bankruptcy Act and the Corporation Act are now in effect. So the changes are that a bankruptcy notice previously was a minimum of $5,000, sorry, and you had 21 days to respond. That's now gone up to 20,000, and you have 6 months to respond. Similarly to that, for a statutory demand for payment, it's now increased from 2,000 to 20,000, and again, 21 days has now been increased to 6 months. So the effect of that is that if you receive one of those from now, you have 6 months to respond rather than 21 days. And the opposite of that is if you are going to proceed with anything like that, your debtors will have 6 months in order to comply with those notices, which obviously gives them a lot more time to negotiate a settlement. And that's the whole point of those changes, to keep the pressure down on those sorts of matters. So it's going to have a pretty large effect on both sides. It's important to know that, but what it does give is an opportunity from both sides to negotiate over the next 6 months to try to resolve the matter. So it, in my opinion, could be a good thing for a lot of matters. So that's come in as at today. There's also some changes in relation to insolvent trading. These haven't quite come into effect yet, but they've been flagged, where the normal penalties and prosecutions for insolvent trading could be basically put in abeyance for a period of time, probably the 6 months as well. And that allows, if there's companies out there that are forging ahead, keeping their employees, etc., in business. However, they are, according to the test, trading whilst insolvent. There will be some allowances made for that, and the prosecutions and penalties may not apply going forward from ASIC for the next 6 months. The courts are obviously making a lot of changes at the moment. The bailiffs are all under an embargo until the 18th of June 2020. So from now till then, they are unable to enforce any warrants that are outstanding, and that's for seizure and sale, enforcement hearings, which is where a debtor is questioned about their financials. All of that has been put off until at least the 18th of June, so everything's been adjourned. The bailiffs are unable to enforce the warrants, so that again allows further time for debtors to negotiate resolutions and talk to the creditors about that. So similar to the bankruptcy notice and the statutory demands. With all the isolation requirements and the shutting of certain businesses, there are now fines in place. They vary between different states as to how much, but if you're in those industries, you need to be aware of the fines, and if you are under isolation, obviously comply with that, because there are fines associated as well. And as announced last night, and Ashely from Ray White will touch on this no doubt, there are some changes now to the real estate industry. No more auctions in person at auction houses, and no more open houses for inspection. They presumably will now change to private inspections, which I understand a lot of real estate agents, if they're on the webinar, have already started doing. So you need to alter what you've got in the past, open for inspections, which makes sense, and no longer allowed. So that's sort of the major changes from a legal point of view that have been coming through. The other thing I wanted to touch on is agreements, and I know Jeremy mentioned in the previous webinar about clauses under agreements about force majeure and frustration. Just to recap on that, there are a lot of agreements will have those sorts of things in there. The force majeure, needs to be something that's outside of everyone's control, can't be reasonably foreseen, etc. And then it could be that agreements could be terminated on that basis, and the same with frustration. But what I really wanted to mention today was you may have agreements in place and you're unable to continue with those, or the other side's unable to continue due to what's happening with the COVID-19. Now's the time to negotiate. And I'd suggest that if you are going to negotiate, that you come with a solution to the other side. So don't, if you can, just sort of say, oh, I can't do this, I can't comply. Come with a solution. There is going to have to be a lot of compromising from both sides with this. But if you come with a solution, then you're more likely to have that solution accepted, and then you know that that's what you can adhere to. And you obviously want to look to the long term and getting as much certainty as you can and can now. So there's a lot of changes coming through. If we stay calm and we negotiate out of these agreements or defer them or whatever it might be, it gives you more certainty. So in 6 months' time, for instance, you know that you've dealt with that agreement and you know exactly what you've got to do going forward. So important to negotiate with those. And then as with anything, communication is key. Communicate with people on the other side. Go to them first with the solutions. From a legal point of view, now's not the time for handshake agreements. Not that you should be shaking anyone's hand anyway, but this is where you need to document everything. So make sure that if you are making some changes to an agreement or agreeing to something with someone on the other side of something, that you document that via email or in some form of document and send that around so everyone's on the same page. So again, in 6 months' time when you go back, there's not going to be an issue with, oh no, I didn't know we agreed to that. So important to document everything absolutely where you can. What's next? So as I've said, a lot of the changes are now starting to come through and actually be implemented and form part of legislation. So as I said, as of today, the Bankruptcy and the Corporations Act are in play. There will be further changes. It's just a matter of time as to who's affected. And so it's obviously a watch this space. There will be further webinars about further changes as they come through. One change that was flagged last week and again last night by the Prime Minister during his press conference is in relation to leasing, which may well be that there could be changes to leasing in the sense that if you're in breach of a lease, that may change whether or not you can enforce those breaches and ultimately evict a tenant from a residential or a commercial lease. And again, Ash may have some things to say about that. So that's basically what's coming up next. It is going to change regularly, but it's just important to keep abreast of the changes and deal with them as they come in and don't sort of start to speculate what might happen. If we just deal with the changes as they come in, then we can, keep going in our businesses and have successful ones. So that's all I wanted to share today.
Thank you, Craig. I should say too, for those who haven't used Zoom before, there's the chat facility that would be down the bottom. It's got a little bubble and the word chat above it, so you can ask questions there. If you'd prefer to you ask verbally, then we will have that opportunity to do that as well. And finally, we do share the videos of the presentations, but we do not share the questions and answers. So there might be some questions that people may not feel comfortable asking. You should feel comfortable to ask any question that you like. We will not share those questions publicly. We will keep a recording of them for our own purposes, but we will not be sharing any of those questions publicly. So I meant to make that point at the beginning, but just so you know that now. All right, moving along. Ash, do you want to unmute yourself and turn your video on and share your screen and get into your content, please?
Can do, yes. So let me remove this to the side. Sorry, 1 second. So I'm just trying to get the share up. Here we go. The most heavily used resource for me at the moment is my bin, where I write every piece of advice from yesterday that I was going to share on this, and now it's gone. So because it is changing so quickly. So what I'm finding is the through line we're seeing on the property front is there's no precedent or legislation for us to hang a hat on. We're seeing changes in New South Wales today on what can and can't be enforced. I know we're going to get an announcement either this afternoon or in the morning around the enforceability of agreements and leases and tenant protection, owner protection. So that element right now is probably off the table, and how we're handling all of the situations is in a commercial mindset of how do we get through this. So the collaborative approach between owners and tenants. So probably I've got a mix of both between property owners and business owners and residential owners, tenants on the call now. So the general line we're working on is how do we get through this together. So step one on the legal front is know where you stand, know what you should do and what you must do. So that's basically taking stock. Take a moment to work out where you stand with lease obligations on both sides, owners and tenants, loan obligations for owners, and health and safety obligations for everyone. Then off the back of that, we can work out the desired outcome. What's our our floor level for each one? What's the the hard no's, the hard yeses for a negotiation? And then probably the key thing getting into this is the relationship of trust. So we're establishing a line of communication that says we're in this together. We're all scared. This is uncharted territory for everyone. But if we're approaching this as a collaborative effort for us all to get through, then instead of a negotiation to win or lose, that's where the best outcomes are going to be. So for all of our, obviously we've got 360 tenancies and owners, so we're encouraging everyone to act deliberately. Now that's not meaning act slowly. It's meaning acting deliberately, picking the path based on the information at hand, but being flexible enough to adjust. The agreements are the legal element of that is going to be the changing landscape. But one thing I really want to reiterate is come with a solution. So when we are from either side, and mostly it's tenants coming to owners. But if you are doing that, come with a solution. So come with context. So what else have you done in your business? So the fear is from owners, and what has muddied the water is day one of this, the national tenants, especially the franchisors, sent templated emails of, dear property owner, we're in hard times. They were even referring to bushfires, and it was just a generic, give us some free stuff. We don't want to pay rent, but no context, no direct impact, no alternative measures that have been taken. So that put a lot of owners on the back foot to go, why am I going to be giving this straight away? We're in a different situation now, a couple of weeks on, where there is legitimate hurt on all fronts, owners and tenants. But when we're coming to the table for to try and get through this part together as a tenant, the best thing you can do to get to get a good result, and wearing my hat as kind of the intermediary or the manager, what I'm seeing the best results come from is when the tenant comes with a deliberate thing of, this is my situation, this is what I've done to alleviate the pressure in other areas. So cost reductions, incentive utilisation, stimulus utilisation, contract renegotiations. These are the steps I've taken before I got here to just put my hand out and ask for something. And here's the solution I propose. So the short-term survival with long-term upside for both is what's going to be best received. And probably the final point is be open to different structures. So tenants and owners are going to have different pressure points on what's going to help them get through. Owners are going to have some bank obligations, some loan obligations, value or LVRs, or cash flow obligations that of their own that if you're stuck in one set structure, it could be you could get a quick no out of an owner. So that's probably the bones of it for me. And there's going to be a lot of conversations for negotiation that, as Craig said, need the as discussed email that follow every conversation. Once we get the handshake and a mutual understanding of what's going to help us through, the as discussed email, so everyone's on the same page, because eventually the dust will settle and there are going to be some cleanup to be done once we survive. So having everything documented is going to be key.
Thank you, Ash. Can you stop sharing?
Mm-hmm.
So as I said before, if you've got any questions for Ash, Craig, or any of the panelists, please put them in the Zoom chat and we can answer them when we've finished this beginning presentation. Thank you, Ash. And as Craig said, handshake is a euphemism. It's, if you want to do the elbow bump or anything like that, document it. Make sure it's in writing so that everyone agrees. All right, Jackie, do you want to go next, please?
Excellent. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Welcome back, those who are here at the first instalment. Welcome to the newcomers. My role here as a HR consultant is really around giving you advice as employers how to handle the employment arrangements with your staff. There's varying options that tracks that people are taking as far as this, but today and I went through a lot of that last time, but today I just wanted to touch on a couple of things. Firstly, a process that I would highly recommend everyone following as far as meeting with your staff and working through and meeting your obligations to consult and things like that. So first step would be obviously to get the key people, leadership, management team, owners, whoever the relevant people there are, together to consider things like which roles could be performed at home, whether there's any other project work or other work that employees can do that may not be part of their existing role, but using this time to work through some projects that are going to be useful to have finished by the time all this is over. Make sure that everyone in the leadership team there across the government fact sheets around stand down and everything like that. So you're all actually on the same page to begin with when you're discussing the options. I recommend speaking to an accountant. Roger Hawley, I hear, is pretty good. If you can make sure you're across the state of the business financially and what your options are there, that will then help you obviously to decide amongst the options you have as far as how you're going to treat your staff. Then what you need to do is set a meeting time with your staff. There is a requirement on you to consult, so take that as discuss, have conversations about with your staff. So set a meeting time and have everyone, and that's if you've if you've been directed to close down, you're definitely going to be meeting with everyone to tell them that. But if you haven't been closed down yet, at that meeting, it's about advising the employees of the state of the situation. Bookings, appointments, what have you, have reduced dramatically. Give them an actual idea of maybe how dire the situation is. Let them know that you're currently considering all options and what work can be performed at home, whether redundancies are going to need to be considered, maybe reduced work hours. But certainly at that point in the meeting, don't be informing them that you've made a decision. You need to consult first. So invite them to make suggestions and ideas. Sometimes, you never know, one of your employees might come out with an absolute cracker of an idea that could, save everyone a lot of time and money and heartache had you not thought about it before. So I invite suggestions, ideas from employees regarding work hours. Some people are saying, that's all right, I'll take a couple of weeks leave without pay. You never know, you might have employees there that put their hand up for things like that. But invite people to even come and see you if you want in private. And things like toil, you might want to say, look, it'd be great if people can take that, but just remembering everything that you go forward with, any arrangements have to be by agreement. I'd also ask them at that point if there's what their level of concern is around safety and whether there's other things that they feel that could be done in the workplace or at home around keeping everyone safe. As I said, invite people to speak to you privately. Recommend that they look at the government fact sheets as well that are for employees, because regarding the job seeker allowance and all that sort of stuff, I won't go into that. After that meeting, it's reconvening your management leadership team and making your decisions, and that could be reduced hours, it could be redundancies, it could be some people working from home, but I really, really, really urge you to look first at your employment contracts, any enterprise agreements you have, awards, because the arrangements that you'll be need to be guided by will be in there. Once you've done that, obviously if it's a permanent shutdown that the government has stipulated, then you're going to be able to put everyone off stand them down without pay. If it's a temporary shutdown, if the government gives a directive to close down, you can stand them down without pay. Just remember they'll accrue annual leave and personal, all their leave as per normal, as per their permanent position. If there's no government directive to close and it's still considered a downturn in business, then at this stage the advice still is that you can't stand down those employees without pay. So you're going to need to look at things like reduced work hours, working from home, maybe even redeployment, people taking toil, paid leave in advance, various options. So for those various options, you'll need to issue in writing things like whether it's a stand down letter, a variation letter to their contracts, a redundancy, termination for the reasons of redundancy. So as Craig said, make sure everything is in writing and signed off, and employees have a copy of it as well. So that's all I wanted to say today, Jeremy.
Thank you, Jackie. As Jackie said, and as I mentioned before, Jackie went through in quite a bit of detail the other obligations in our previous webinar. Hawley has shared that video in the chat. So if you see a flashing orange thing down the bottom, if you're not aware of how to use Zoom, please have a look at that. Click on that. You'll see the chat comes up and has that video in there so that you can watch that. That's the YouTube version of that video. All right, Roger, would you like to unmute yourself and share with us the changes to the stimulus packages?
Sure thing. Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks everyone so far. I'll just share my screen here. Okay, so just before I start, I just want to mention there's someone on the call here, Mick Fort, who haven't actually met Mick since 1987. We were apprentices in the army way back then, so I'm just wondering if I've changed much over 33 years. You can message me later. Anyway, so today I'm going to look at the stimulus packages, particularly round 2. So we covered round 1 in the call, which Hawley has put the link to there. A couple of things have been made redundant from round 1 with the updates within round 2. So I will just flick through the slides and just say, hey, this information is now redundant. Refer to stimulus package round 2. So the first measure was announced on the 12th of March. So this instant asset write-off, this is still valid. So if you want details on that, refer to the first slides. This one's still valid as well, temporary accelerated depreciation. So refer to the first seminar there. So this one is now been made redundant. So you can put a line through this, disregard this one. It's been updated, and I'll talk about that one in a moment. And the welfare recipients, so these cash payments, the first tranche of these cash payments, this is still going to go ahead from the 31st of March through the 17th of April. So that was the first round of stimuluses. So today I want to focus on the second round because they're much more comprehensive, and there's further focus on supporting businesses and also particularly the elderly and the unemployed or people in receipt of government assistance. So we'll go through each of the new stimuluses. But as Jeremy said, bearing in mind this is as announced on Sunday, it was the 22nd of March. I'm expecting there'll be 3rd, 4th, 5th rounds of these stimuluses, and most likely what I'm about to say today may be made redundant and may be updated. So I think it's worthwhile checking in almost on a daily basis to see if there's been any updates. And with all of these stimuluses, unfortunately, there's not a one-stop shop where you can check in and get information. Depending on the stimulus, you may need to check with the ATO, you may need to check with Centrelink, you may need to check with your bank, or you may need to check with your accountant. So I'll talk about each one as we go through each stimulus. So this is the update of the boosting cash for employers. This is the update of the first one from stimulus 1. So instead of the big change here is the massive increases. Like it's gone up to 100,000 for PAYG withheld, and it's now 100% of PAYG withheld, where previously it was only 50%. And also the minimum payment has increased from 2,000 to 20,000, which is massive. So if you're an employer that employs a lot of casual staff, junior staff that don't receive large wages, and potentially you don't have any PAYG withheld, you will receive a minimum payment of 20,000. So it'll be 10,000 in the March BAS, which is due to be lodged at least 28th of April, and then the next 10,000 will be in the following BAS, and it's a maximum of 50,000 per period. So I guess the biggest question I've been getting here from my clients is, alrighty, do I now go and throw myself on the down as an employee and start paying myself a big wage? The answer is unfortunately no. The cutoff period for this was the 12th of March. So I'd advise people not to do that because it is fraud. Okay, so the relief for distressed businesses. So Craig touched on that earlier, so I won't talk about that. There's a support for immediate cash flow needs. This one's massive. I think this one's a real lifeline to small business, and I think people seriously should have a look at this in line with their commercial needs, but have a look at this unsecured loan. So it's up to $250,000 for small to medium enterprises. It's a 3-year unsecured loan with the first 6 months repayment free. Notice how I said repayment free there. It's not interest free. So the interest will actually be capitalized during that period, and you'll need to start paying back from the 7th month. So this is available from April 2020, and it's to be used for working capital and paying wages and keeping your business afloat. It shouldn't be used for other purposes. How to apply? So most major banks have got something up on their website. I know I've checked with 2, CBA and Westpac. If you go on and click immediate support for COVID-19 and then follow the links through business, you'll be able to see an application there. There is a huge waiting list. So at the moment, it's just an expression of interest. So you put your details in, you send it off to the bank. Depending on the bank's resources will determine how quickly they get back to you there. But be patient there because there's a lot of people going to be applying for this loan. Okay, so there's extra income support for individuals. So the government announced a supplement, a coronavirus supplement of $550, which will be added to existing New Start benefits. So I guess a lot of the commentary that I read as the Prime Minister was announcing this particular stimulus is, why did the unemployed get more money? This is not about supporting the existing unemployed. This is about the new unemployed that are going to come through this coronavirus. So what it means is you're going to get the best part of $1,200 on New Start benefits. They've waived asset testing, and they've also waived the waiting period. So the only test that you will need to satisfy to get New Start benefits at the moment is the income test, and I believe it's $1,075 per fortnight. So this is available to people who have lost their job or people that are now underemployed. You may have kept your job, but you've only got a half day or a day a week, so you're eligible now to apply for this. And it's also available for sole traders who have experienced a significant drop in their trading. I think it's 20% or more. They can now go into Centrelink and apply for the benefits. Not surprisingly, Centrelink has, I'm sure everyone's aware, they're experiencing a huge demand at the moment. The queues are horrendous. So what I did, I actually got up in the middle of the night and I tried to log in and have a look at 3 a.m. and it was fine. So if you do need to register for Centrelink and you're worried about the site crashing, do what I did and have a look during the night. So then it's fine. But this is a really good incentive for people that really need it. Okay, so payments to support households. So there's going to be a second payment of $750 for people that are in receipt of government benefits. This includes the unemployed, includes pensioners, includes people on carers allowance. It also includes family tax benefit recipients. So the second payment is going to take place on or around the 13th of July. Just my little thing here is I'd really love people to support local businesses with this money. It was a similar stimulus was provided during the GFC. I think everyone remembers that most of it went to the pokies and Harvey Norman. People went out and bought television sets. I'd really love people to spend $50 here, $50 there to the local businesses just down on your local street. Just go and buy a pie or buy a newspaper, buy some milk. Because if we don't, unfortunately, those businesses may not be there in 3 months' time. We'll just be left with Woolies and Coles and the large corporates. So I'd really urge people to support your local businesses. Maybe don't pay the rates with it. Don't pay insurance, and definitely don't play the pokies. Okay, so this one's a really good one. Temporary access to superannuation. So you've got the ability to draw down $10,000 in this financial year, 2020, and also a further $10,000 in the next financial year, and they're both tax-free. I guess the one positive that's sort of come out of this, the timing of this whole virus, is the straddling of the 2 financial years. So because our financial year ends 30 June 2020, you may have a position where you can take advantage of some things in this financial year and then potentially take advantage of them again in the next financial year. So if people can structure their tax affairs properly, they may end up with really good results for 2 financial years in a row. So this is available to sole traders if sales reduced by 20%, and it doesn't affect your Centrelink payments. So if you're in your late 40s or in your 50s, you're not that far off being able to access your superannuation anyway. So I think this is a really good opportunity for people to take advantage of this superannuation and draw down on it. So as the Treasurer said when they announced this stimulus, it's less than 1% of total superannuation or assets under management at the moment. So it's rather immaterial. So if people do have substantial superannuation, and then this is an opportunity for them to pull it out completely tax-free. Because normally if you are sick or you're on hard times and you do draw down on your superannuation, it's included as assessable income in your tax return. But this is a special measure where it will be completely tax-free. There's also been a reduction in the minimum superannuation drawdowns. So this is for people that are 60 and older that are already accessing their superannuation. What happened during the GFC is, well, because the minimum drawdown is at least 4%, but depending on how old you are, it can be much, much higher. People had to crystallise the losses, because everyone's superannuation is down at the moment because of the fall in the share market. So if you're forced to sell due to the minimum drawdowns, then you effectively crystallise your losses, and you've got no chance of holding it and waiting for it to return, which it did in the case of the GFC. It returned in 2 to 3 years. So this has been reduced by 50%. So the minimum drawdown effectively is now 2% as opposed to 4%. Okay, so just in conclusion, it's a rapidly changing environment. So as Jeremy said, and then I've also said, if what we're saying today we believe to be correct, but it may be made redundant very quickly and obsolete very quickly based on further announcements by the Prime Minister. At the time of me writing these slides, the measures were not yet legislated, but I'm pretty sure the Labor government's not going to challenge anything, and it's all going to go through pretty quickly. So I might just hand back to you, Jeremy.
I'll just say on that point that a lot of it has been passed.
Oh, it has been passed now?
Some
Okay.
of it has been, but not all of it. So.
Yeah. So, but I think we can, in the case of tax legislation, you can generally act as though it's going to be passed.
Yeah.
The ATO is very lenient on you if you act on something and it ultimately doesn't get passed.
I think that's right. If you act on something that's been announced now, then that's fine.
Yeah. So that's it. So I'll hand back to you. I'll just stop the share here.
Thanks,
Jeremy, and hand back to you.
All right, and just mute yourself, please. Great. All right. So thank you to all our panelists. I know that everyone would have got a lot of information out of that.
Sorry, Jeremy, I just had, I realised there was one thing that I didn't cover during my presentation is one question that I've been getting a lot is when you're an employer and you have you don't actually employ anyone, but you have a large number of contractors. Is there any relief for the employer in that case? And the answer to that is no, as far as I can see. The package is only assisting employees or people with employees at this stage. They're withholding PAYG. So what I'd suggest then, if you do have contractors and they are struggling, well then they'll need to go and apply to Centrelink as a business owner of their own accord.
Great, thank you for that. Any other questions? While we wait to see if there's any other questions, does any of the panelists want to say anything else that's come up from any of the discussions that have been on there? Craig, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I think the message from everyone is if you are going to make any changes, make sure you communicate it and document it. So that would be the main thing. There was something that came to mind with the leave entitlements. Jackie, is there any scope, do you think, about there being a package released that will mean that the government may be paying out some of these leave entitlements going forward as well for the redundancies and the long service?
I think there would be a lot of happy employers if that was announced. I don't know. I wouldn't hazard to guess. Sorry, Craig.
Yeah, it's an unknown one, really.
Yeah, I thought I saw it mentioned somewhere, but as something that might be on the horizon. So maybe it's happened in a different country.
And one parting comment from me would be, in addition to making sure employers are reading very finely the employment contracts, awards, enterprise agreements, another good source of information for you is your industry bodies. So I have a client who's in the dental sector, and the Australian Dental Association and the Board of Dentists, I can't quite rightly remember what the other one is, they've actually come together and today announced that a different approach to stand down. So it seems willing to back employers in that sector. If for standing down staff when it hasn't actually been a government directive. So I'm still exploring that one and the legitimacy of that information that I've heard, but certainly won't be acting until I'm absolutely clear. So yes, please do make use of your industry bodies if you have them, because they usually have a HR helpline, hotline, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and most of them are publishing stuff on a daily basis about what their advice is to their members. And if you're following the advice of an industry body, then normally that's good, especially in these circumstances. Because remember, as we've said before, what we're going through, the corona crisis right now, is unprecedented. No one's dealt with this before. This has never happened before. So we just need to stay calm and do what the logical things are, and we'll all get through this together. Ash, did you want to just give any parting words?
Yeah, just a quick one. I'm just going to share a link to a kind of resource that we've got. This is it'll be a live document that we'll update as we're going. So it's got some info on what I talked about today. But if anyone that's got any attachment to commercial property, we've explored some a fair few different angles on where we're sitting right now, what the future is obviously ridiculously difficult to predict, but just showing what we'll be measuring and what I think people should be looking for moving forward in terms of what the impacts are going to be straight on commercial property.
Excellent, thank you. And as you've said and I've said, we do anticipate there's going to be a package on that soon. So we will be doing another one of these to talk about that once we know more as well.
Yeah, and I'll be plugging it straight into that. You'll see a new page come up in that link. So if you're checking that link every couple of days, then it's a virtual book that we'll be trying to keep as relevant by the hour as possible.
Absolutely. For anyone who doesn't know Zoom at all, I actually learned this on the last call, that in that chat window, there's 3 little dots next to where it is that you're talking to. So if you're talking to everyone or someone privately, you can actually save a copy of the chat. So I'd encourage people to save a copy of the chat, especially for any of those links so that you can get them, or copy out the links if you want them as well. Roger, any final thoughts from yourself?
No, just in conclusion, like with all of these stimulus, there's some pretty good stimulus packages or incentives out there. You just need to, each one you need to check with a different body in order to confirm it. Like I can, I've been inundated with calls. What do I do? What do I do? There's other than lodging people's BASs on time to help them with the PAYG. The rest of them, there's nothing I can do. You've got to check with Centrelink. You've got to check with your bank. Some cases you've got to check with the ATO. So accountants can only assist you with getting your BAS lodged on time. So I fully expect that April's going to be rather busy with a lot of business owners wanting their March BAS lodged. But that's it. No, thanks everyone for listening. Thanks Jeremy for organising.
Thanks everyone, and thank you Roger, Craig, Jackie and Ash. I will just quickly share a graphic. This was in the email that you would have all received, and it's a copy of everyone's email address that was on today. Mine is simply jeremy@smslaw.com.au, but the emails come from my email address, so you'll have those details. Please feel free to share all of this material, the videos, etc., with anyone that you think would be interested. But this is about helping everyone get through this. It's not it's not limited to certain people. We want to help as many people as we can. So we're gonna put this back up on YouTube without the questions. We're going to put this and we'll send an email around with everyone's contact details. So please feel free to utilize us as a resource to help you through this, and we'll all get through it together. If there's any specific questions, please feel free to email us. As I've said a couple of times, we will be doing more of these. This is an ever-changing landscape, so stay tuned to your emails, watch our Facebook pages. We'll all be sharing that. So if no one's got any final questions, I'll end it there and thank everyone for taking the time out of their day to be on this call, and we'll speak to you soon. Thanks very much.